growing up in D.C., obviously, it's like growing up in Hollywood with the movie business. My family had nothing to do with politics, but it's sort of unavoidable when you grow up there. And I remember, growing up, I became enormously close with Teresa Bradley, Bill Bradley's daughter. And, I just thought he was the coolest dude in the world because he was so tall, and he took me to a Knicks game once.
He's a good ball player.
You know what I'm saying? Like Spike Lee came over and said, "What's up?" That was crazy, you know what I mean? And, but I remember when he was running for president, I remember he said succinctly to Teresa, whether I win or lose here is totally dependent on whether I followed my North Star of being truly authentic to myself, whether I didn't violate my own beliefs to try to garner a vote, to try to get something. And, to me, when I look at leaders, when I look at people that I would follow anywhere, to me, it's folks that I've experienced things with. It's folks, and for me, I need to be in the box with that person. I need to see, I've read your work. I'm so taken with you. I'm so taken with what you're about and the things that you've done. One, like, what's your North Star? Who is your authentic self? But two, what do you say to people who just believe politicians by nature are fluid and are changing and are part of a divisive kind of structure in this country that's completely corrosive?
Yeah.
That's a long-ass question. I apologize.
No, it's a great question.
This ain't McLaughlin Group. I'm doing the best I can, man. You know what I mean? It's a lot of questions in one, but I'm genuinely interested.
I'm loving this, man.
Okay, that's what's up. Okay.
I would say, first in when I think about my North Star, it's just authenticity. I remember having this conversation. In fact, I was having this conversation with Dougie when as we first got on board. I said, listen, I have no problem spending all day long introducing myself to people who don't know me. Mm-hmm. I won't spend a second of the day reintroducing myself to people who do. I am who I am. And I never want a situation where people who are like, I thought I knew Wes, but now that he's going into politics, I'm seeing a different person.
Right.
I'm hearing different issues. I'm like, nah, like everything we're talking about, these are issues that we've been working on for my whole adult life. And I am who I am. You know what I mean? And so I think authenticity and being able to move with a sense of urgency does become important. I think it's the same thing where, you think about, someone was actually saying the other day when they were reading the works, whether it's the other Wes Moore or the work, et cetera, they're like, I feel like I'm already getting a sense of your platform because you told us a decade ago about what matters and what kind of stuff you care about, right? And for the people who feel frustrated about the system, I guess my answer is, I hear you. And it's justified. For so many of us, our lives and what's happened in our lives don't give us a reason to believe that this thing can change. My grandfather was the first one on my mom's side of the family born in this country. And his father, my great-grandfather, was a minister, and he was a vocal minister. Like one of these dudes who was like, I'm not just going to teach you the word, I'm gonna ask you to live it here on earth. And eventually he started getting threats. And eventually the Ku Klux Klan started making physical threats to him and his family. In the middle of the night, he picked up his family, to include my grandfather, and moved. And so the Ku Klux Klan ran them out. And it wasn't just ran them out of the community, they ran them out of the country. They went to Jamaica. And from most of my family, from much of my side of the family, they always vowed to never come back to this country, and they didn't. They stayed in Jamaica. So that's why, I'm a proud Yardy. You still got a lot of family down in Jamaica. Yep. But my grandfather didn't. My grandfather, I always say in all of his humility, said this country would be incomplete without me. And he came back here. He went to an HBCU. He eventually became a minister like his father. He became the first black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church. And I always say, this is a man who, he died at 87. He died when I was in Afghanistan. And he had a deep Jamaican accent his entire life and was maybe the most patriotic American I've ever met.
Wow.
He loved this country. He loved this nation with his deep Jamaican accent. Mm. And I think about him often on this idea where when people have a sense of frustration that things can't change or whatever like that, like I hear them. Yeah. And I can't question their feeling about it because the truth is that this journey, this route, it's been remarkable and it's been uneven. But I also know that when I think about like my grandfather, a person who just believes so deeply in what this nation hoped to be, that he believes so deeply in the idea of community that with each passing time and each passing moment, we actually could be better. And I think about now that that man's grandson is on the cusp of becoming the first black governor in the history of a state. I can't give up. I can't give in. Like, I've seen the breakage and I've seen the rebuilding.
Yep.
And so the thing that keeps me going is I know what's real, but it's only real if we will it. It ain't gonna happen because of inevitability. You know, it ain't gonna happen because we show up.
That's right.
You gotta work. And I just choose not to curl up in a fetal position. I choose to work because I've seen what can happen if we do, because I had examples that I came up with that showed me that.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about Maryland, because you started this by saying you're a proud Marylander, you love this state.
I do.
We both grew up here. We're not the best known state in the country, so not everybody knows what makes Maryland great. What do you love about Maryland? Like, when you think about it, what do you tell people about this state?
I love the fact that, you know, and for all those non-Marylanders out there, you know, for us Marylanders, you know, Maryland is known as American miniature, right? Where within a 2-3 hour basis, you can go from the hills and the mountains, you can go mountain climbing to the beach. That you can go from skyscrapers to farmland. It's literally anything that you want in the country, you're going to be able to see and get.
And all kinds of people.
And all kinds of people. And I love that about this state, right? I love the diversity of the state. I love the fact that, you know, I could sit there and have, you know, in the morning have conversations with crab pickers, and then later on have conversations with, you know, with attorneys and doctors, and then later on turn around and have conversations with someone who's recently released, who's now coming home, and to someone who has been, been working at a paper mill that's just gone out of business, now trying to figure out what they're going to do because their whole town just lost their largest industry. Like, I love the fact I can have all these various conversations in one day, one day in the state of Maryland. And I think about all the assets that we have here in the state of Maryland, where I always say, you know, the state of Maryland, this is literally the home of everything from the Port of Baltimore to you know, the Chesapeake Bay, to the NIH and the CDC, to NASA, to, you know, 4 of the top HBCUs, historic black college universities in this country. Like, we've got so much here, but we are asset rich and strategy poor, where we have all these assets here. And it's amazing how arbitrary and miserly we are about who can actually benefit from those assets and how we leverage those assets. And so one of the things I'm really excited about is both creating a society. You know, we have on our campaign what we call, you know, the Leave No One Behind agenda. And that actually came from the military, where, you know, I first, you know, joined when I was 17, and, you know, a mantra they asked us to live by when I first joined the military was, leave no one behind. Every mission will be evaluated on that. Leave no one behind. And that is the philosophy that I want the state of Maryland to take come January. We will be a state that leaves no one behind, because we don't have to. But the whole basis of the Leave No One Behind agenda is, as a state, we are going to grow. As a state, we are going to compete. As a state, we are going to win. As a state, we are going to recruit. I'm going to take the state on an 8-year roadshow. I want to show the country that this is where you want to be. But we will leave no one behind in the process. And that's the vision, and that's the mission.